Hello, this is Jackpot, and welcome back to episode 2 of our Easter egg retrospective. Today we will be diving into the iconic Doris facility, aka the Giant in Black Ops 3. First, I would like to thank everyone for their support on the last video. I had a great time creating it and loved seeing the comments and opening a new discussion about zombies. Make sure to watch my Shadows of Evil video first so this one will make more sense. Without further ado, let's fracture the universe, hop into a teleporter, and head to the iconic Doris facility. To start with the gameplay review, let's dive into how this Easter egg works. It's not a grand quest like Shadows of Evil, but a very simple addition with a small specialist weapon reward in the end. It's important to note that this map was made as a remake of the classic Doris released in 2009. It was meant to be a simple, casual experience for new players and a nostalgic one for people who played the original. However, I still feel that this quest could have been much better than it actually was. To start off this quest, you spawn in the original Doris facility, and you just kind of start Dorising, if you will. Opening up the map, turning on the power, linking the teleporters, and opening up that nostalgic Pack-a-Punch machine. In the original Doris, this was a fantastic experience that we had never seen before in any other game. However, after maps like Origins and Mob of the Dead came out, most people were used to more complex maps and story-driven gameplay elements. To begin the Easter egg, you shoot this panel sitting against this pole. After hearing from Dr. Maxis himself, you are sent around the map to find 2 teddy bears and a monkey bomb, just like in the original Doris. But in the Giant, they are in different locations for some reason. After finding and shooting all of the items, you hear more dialogue, and then when you come to the furnace, you are given the grand reward. Well, the Annihilator pistol. And some experience. I don't know what's worse about the Annihilator, the boring aesthetic or the brutal damage fall off by only round 25. Every time I get this weapon, it makes me want to run into an electric trap. I don't understand how Jason Blundell thought this port of a gun for multiplayer would ever fit into the original Doris, but he was wrong. This weapon is a disgrace to what made Doris so special. This map originally introduced the Pack-a-Punch machine to us and a unique story. But Jason and the crew turned this into a garbage specialist weapon only 6 years later. It's inexcusable. An improved version of the World at War flamethrower would have been a much better fit to the Giant as a specialist weapon, and all the Chronicles maps for that matter. Despite how underwhelming the main quest is, there is another side quest that I would like to talk about. The free perk machine side quest. It is much more rewarding and interesting than the actual main quest on the Giant. After acquiring monkey bombs from the mystery box, the player must throw one into each teleporter and then teleport, transferring energy to the giant robot behind the Pack-a-Punch machine. The robot then shoots a huge laser right over your head and melts the snow covering the perk machine. This quest ties into Doris and fits the original style perfectly while not feeling too intrusive. It gives you an actual useful reward that can be a massive advantage with Stamina Up or a decent add-on with Deadshot. Luckily, there is a way to tell which perk it is by shooting the glass, so you can restart until you get your desired perk. I love this quest and wish that the main Easter egg was this interesting or rewarding. I always find myself doing this, but I never even bother to get the Annihilator, despite it being much easier to acquire. This side quest is peak Call of Duty Zombies, a quest that doesn't feel forced, but still gives those players that dig beneath the surface a reward for doing so. Now, I'd like to transition in discussing what I think this map should have been as a main quest Easter egg. I believe that the Giant is disappointing compared to the rest of Black Ops 3. Even as that casual style map, it feels like it wants to be a new version of the original Doris, especially when you spawn in and see the massive robot that was never featured in the original, and you're also playing as the premise characters instead of their Ultimus versions. I believe that a full main quest Easter egg based on rebuilding that giant robot would have been a great addition to this map. Allowing the player to prepare for Der Eisendrache by bringing this massive machine back to life would have made the Giant feel more unique. A great reward could be given to the player, such as a Perkaholic, Wonderwaff ammo buff, and maybe even a trap coming from the robot itself that could be activated from that same panel you used to melt the ice around the perk machine. A basic and interesting quest like this would allow the Giant to feel like its own experience, instead of the nostalgia trip that it's become. Overall, despite its issues, the Giant is still an aesthetically pleasing version of the iconic Derice facility with more fluent gameplay, less glitches, and a much bigger tie into the Ether story as a whole. Speaking of the story, now would be a great time to dive into the story aspect of today's video. The creation of a paradox. A multiverse with fractures and infinite possibilities. That's what the Giant story is all about, creating infinite routes to take the Ether story moving forward. After collecting the summoning key from Morgue City, Richtofen would go to Dimension 2210 to find a younger, innocent, and sad version of himself. He would relive his childhood and have to carry out a painful task.
The story of Dimension 2210 is a story of my soul. I was just a boy then, an innocent. I was a sensitive child, a lonely child, orphaned at a young age. I never got to know who I really was. But one day, I learned who I would grow up to be. I had to do it. The Chronorium told me. I had to trick the poor little innocent me into trusting a complete stranger. I took my own soul before it could ever have the chance to flourish. Is it any wonder? And the way I am.
After collecting his soul, he gets it reincarnated by Dr. Monty. Dr. Monty is the leader of the Keepers, who are ancient beings, responsible for the creation of all dimensions. Monty lives in a house in Agartha, the so-called heaven of the Ether storyline. This is where the cleansed soul of Richtofen, known as Eddie, and Samantha would reside. Richtofen, with the help of Dr. Monty, created portals to travel to the Derice facility and to return to the original timeline with his allies and to do what all of us wished we could do at some point in our lives. Change history.
Richtofen, whatever you're thinking of doing, don't do it! You do not want to meet what's on the other side of that door!
You cannot begin to comprehend the great evil you could unleash!
After killing his Ultimus version that created so much harm and destruction during the original timeline, it would be easy to think that Richtofen did this to collect his own soul, like the others. However, this was not his main purpose. Richtofen killed his Ultimus self despite already having his whole soul secured in the house. He did this for two reasons. One being to create a paradox. This would allow him to create fractures in the multiverse that he could manipulate as he pleased. And the second reason was to show his allies the way to a better future. By collecting versions of their own souls and getting reincarnated, they could forever live in peace and escape this hellish disaster that the original timeline created. The allies of Richtofen, being Dempsey, Nikolai, and Takio, all undergo major character development throughout the Giant. It's important to note that they form a bond with each other based off not trusting Richtofen. They are all confused, hurt, battered, and bruised, and all they want is for the nightmare to end. I will be going through each character and describing their state of mind and relationship with Richtofen at this time, as I feel that it is the best way of presenting this context. We will start with our favorite Russian soldier, Nikolai, a man that has experienced nothing but defeat, pain, and grief throughout his life. He was a victim of the Stalingrad attacks and destroyed his homeland and tested the pride of his country. But he always finds a way to keep fighting and persevere. His hatred for Richtofen had a lot to do with him being German. He struggled to be an ally with someone that he viewed as an opponent from the German side. The wars gave Nikolai a fear and almost a traumatic response from being with Edward. He couldn't believe that his only chance at survival was to put his faith in a seemingly mad and heartless German scientist. Takio Masaki was a Japanese samurai that served the Emperor of Japan during World War II. His loyalty to the Emperor, like most Japanese soldiers during the war, was cult-like. He would do anything to please and honor the Emperor, despite the Emperor not really caring about him at all. Out of the three allies, he trusted Richthofen the most. He felt a spiritual connection to Edward and felt that he was trying to make the world a better place. His loyalty to Richthofen soon became much like that of his loyalty to the Emperor over time. This brings us to Tank Dempsey, an American war hero that served the States in the Second World War as well. Tank is a military strategist. Everything he does is calculated and efficient. He is patriotic and a prideful person that was always looking to be a leader and help other people become as strong mentally and physically as himself. He did not trust Richthofen at all, and he felt that his actions were dangerous and irrational. He, just like the others, was looking for peace and happiness and a way to set the world right. Over time, he realized that Richthofen's plan was the only plan. After the events of the Giant, the four allies would use the giant robot at the Derice facility and escape the onslaught of zombies that came their way. I believe that this story is effective and interesting. The idea of coming face to face with another version of yourself is something that I find intimidating to think about. Imagine having to face everything you've done in the past or in the future. This is terrifying to think about from a spiritual perspective. Richthofen's journey is something we can all relate to in our lives, having to erase the past from our everyday life and move forward with our loved ones. I love how the Primus versions of our characters are different from the Ultimus versions from the original games. It shows that one event in history can change people's souls and their spiritual path forever. The Giant is the starting point for a massive quest to collect the souls of our allies and bring them back to the house with Dr. Monty. It starts a chain of events that are astronomical, while taking place in the familiar facility from World at War. I love how this story brings casual fans and hardcore fans together, and allows us to all think deeply about it and enjoy it, no matter how much you do or don't understand the story. This brings us to our tier list portion of the video. Let's kick things off with our gameplay tier list. This is going into the D tier for gameplay. This Easter egg is just a copy and paste from World at War with slightly different locations for the objects you have to find. There's nothing interesting about the dialogue or what you have to do, and the story doesn't flow into the Easter egg at all. On top of that, the Annihilator is the worst possible reward for completing it, making it one of the worst Easter eggs in Black Ops 3. Next is the story tier list. I will be placing the Giant in A tier. Despite not being as interesting as Shadows of Evil, it's interesting to see the Primus crew starting a new journey that would mess with the fabric of the multiverse in an attempt to save it. Such an odd yet welcome twist to the mode's story. Our final list is the difficulty tier list. And what a shocker, this is going into the F tier. Maybe the easiest Easter egg of all time. You just open the Pack-a-Punch machine and you shoot 3 items. That's it. Anyone can do it. And I'll let you guys decide whether or not that's a good thing. Before leaving, I would like to thank you for watching. Every comment, like, and view means so much to me, and I appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to me being a nerd. I guess we can hop into that robot and head to the Iron Dragon.